Hello, the purpose of this screencast is to go through the Washington, D.C. Reports Project Overview with you, provide you with some anecdotes or additional information, and also hopefully clear up any misunderstandings that might arise over the course of this project, and ultimately to give you a better picture of what this 5 to 6 week project entails. Couple things before we start. First of all, obviously you clicked this DC Reports Overview in order to find this screencast. And you'll see that this explains to you that you need to be sitting next to a parent or guardian while watching this, so both of you are getting this information together. And at the end of the process, you will sign indicating that you, or provide your signature indicating that you listened to this and wrote down some questions, but for the most part went through it and understood what was explained. Also, there are 2 different versions of this overview. I am going through the one that all modern language students receive, so if you take Chinese or Spanish, you received the one that I'm going to go over. Some of you are in language arts, and your calendar is a little bit different. And I'll mention this when I get to the calendar portion. So these are 2 versions of the overview right here, should you lose the one that you're looking at right now. Now, as I go through this, you should be flipping through with me, and you can write any notes you want in the margins or on the sides, or any questions you have on the margins or on the sides. You may have a lot. You'll notice that the format is question and answer, so highlighted in bold is a question, and then it is answered by these check marks. So let's get started. Washington, D.C. Reports, Project Overview. What are the Washington, D.C. Reports? Well, they are 6 5-paragraph essays. 3 of them are required, 3 of them are choice. You will use brochures and websites as sources. Your teacher provides those. Any one of them you can print to make it into a paper copy. If you're in language arts, I highly recommend that, but I really actually recommend it for all students. Print it, make it into a paper copy. It's a lot easier to annotate and to understand. And a Washington, D.C. report focuses on monuments, memorials, sites, and or buildings you will see in Washington, D.C. So you're getting a little background knowledge. Finally, a Washington, D.C. report will include notes, paragraph outlines, drafts, illustrations, and a written work in a decorated binder. So you will be gathering information first or taking notes, then you take those notes and turn them into outlines that eventually turn into paragraphs that form drafts, and then you finish an illustration and you put that together into a published report that is a decorated binder. And I will go over a PDF that shows you basically what a finished DC report looks like, but also be showing you a lot of versions in class. Next question, what does a Washington, D.C. report look like? A Washington, D.C. report focuses on a single monument, memorial, site, and or building you will see in Washington, D.C. A Washington, D.C. report is concerned with 3 things. 1, either the person's life, so like the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial is on the person's life, or the history of the place, like let's say a Bull Run, or the event or structure it celebrates. Another one might be Mount Vernon. And number 2, the story behind the structure or the site's creation. You'll also be researching what decisions had to be made in order to get this structure built. Did Congress have to pass a bill in order for it to be funded so that it could be built, etc.? Take notes on that. You're also going to be gathering information on the design of the structure. So what it looks like, what materials were used in it, how much space it takes up, etc. A Washington, D.C. report includes 1 introductory paragraph, 3 informative body paragraphs, and 1 concluding paragraph. These body paragraphs, notice how there's 3? 1, 2, 3. So that's what most of them focus on. The person's life, or the history of the event, the story behind the building of the structure, and the design. Those are the 3 body paragraphs. And then you're also going to learn how to do an effective introductory and concluding paragraph. Not finally, second to finally, it includes an illustration. So as you finish up each one of these, you can be doing illustrations along the way. And actually, with free time, I encourage all the students, do an illustration. Don't save them till the end, but do them as you go. And you'll find that during some dead time where you got something done and maybe there's not quite enough time in class to get into another one, you can do a little bit of your illustration. So having those handy and working on those as you go is really helpful, rather than saving them for the last couple nights before it's due. Finally, a Washington, D.C. report shows off the writing skills you've worked on all year, using commas, using sentence variety, etc. Why are we doing the Washington, D.C. reports? Well, there's a lot of reasons. Number one, you're going to go there, so you're going to have some knowledge of these places before you actually set foot in D.C. and stand in front of them. You're going to know the history behind it and the person that it memorializes, etc. You're also applying effective note-taking skills, really working on paraphrasing, capturing main ideas, and using shorthand, so that your notes don't look at all like the original source, but things have been put into your brain and put out on paper using your own words. You will continue to practice the skill of organizing ideas into paragraphs. And there's a very specific way we do this, and that's the next check mark. That's using something called text structures. And this is what good writers use. There's 4 that we use. Cause and effect. Paragraphs can have a cause and effect relationship in it, or a problem-solution relationship, or they can simply be descriptive, where they describe different features of something, or it could be sequential, meaning it describes the order of how something happened. If you imagine a person's life, well, a logical way to do that is tell the person's life in order. Next check mark, and purpose. Apply the various writing skills you have learned. Here's some that we've worked on, using complete sentences, and commas, using apostrophes, sentence variation, and using that in this project. Apply the proofreading skills you have learned to a project. Well, you're going to see how I do proofreading when I review your work, and then you're going to practice doing that on your own work as well as the work of a peer. Finally, you're going to practice the time management skills it takes to do a large project. This is a big project. So to complete this takes really managing time and materials. It's going to get you ready for the history project in 7th grade. And hopefully you can think of, wow, I did the Washington, D.C. reports. I was able to handle that. I'm ready for the 7th grade history project. And along those lines, I slowly take myself out of the process. So as you're working on this, we're going to do it really closely together at first. And then by the time you're working on your choice topics, you're by yourself for the most part, and I'm just a person helping you facilitate things or answer questions, steer you in the right direction. On to page 2. When will I work on the Washington, D.C. reports? Well, they are due May 13th, and you're going to be working on them all throughout April and a little bit into May. And we do it just about every single day in class. We touch on them or work on them. How will I select topics for the Washington, D.C. reports? Well, first you have 3 required reports. You're going to write on the 3 branches of government, an important American, and that is the memorials that memorialize these important Americans, Washington Monument, Jefferson Memorial, Lincoln Memorial, and the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial. And then we're going to write one on Jamestown. And Jamestown's important because of its legacy that it left for America. And 2 of them are negative legacies, and that's the removal of Native people, and of course the institution of slavery, but you could see this as a positive one, is the birth of democracy. It came out of Jamestown. In addition to the 3 required reports, you have choice topics to do, and this is the list of choice topics. Some of these have an asterisk next to them, and they have an asterisk for 2 reasons. Number 1, you can't do the Washington Monument twice. You have to choose an important American, so let's say I chose Washington Monument, well, then I can do Jefferson, Lincoln, or MLK next. Some of these have an asterisk because you're actually going to save yourself time by doing it. If I choose the Capitol, well, that's the legislative branch. I've already written a paragraph for this required report on the legislative branch, so really I just have to write 2 body paragraphs if I chose the Capitol. So that's why the asterisk is next to them. Otherwise, the rest of these are all new. If you're a person that enjoys battle and wars of the past, there's several of those. Iwo Jima is also the Marine Corps Memorial. Person that enjoys presidents, well, FDR is also in there, and that's a really cool memorial. It's different than the other ones. Stephen F. Udvar-Hazy is for anybody who loves aviation. This is the one report where we're going to work together to find sources. I don't have them ready-made because students pick aircrafts out of the whole museum and can go down many different lines of thinking and writing. Mount Vernon is probably the most difficult of the choice reports that you can choose from. It's a challenge, and that's just because of the nature of the content. Battle of Bull Run's first battle of the Civil War, and we go to the Battle of Bull Run, which is in Manassas, Virginia, and then Arlington National Cemetery and the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. How will I complete the Washington, D.C. reports? Well, we use this system called AGOP. A stands for asking questions. A lot of your notes are going to be organized around these questions that I have used as prompts for what information is the most important. G stands for gathering information. So the first phase is to gather information or take notes. Our notes are all handwritten, and you're going to receive the sources from your teacher as well as the sheets of paper or the organizers that you're going to be writing your notes on. Organize and write is O, and that's where you're actually taking those notes, putting them into graphic organizers that organize them into text structures. You're going to find that you actually use less than half of your notes when you start composing these graphic organizers. So really the process of writing is finding the most critical information or the most important information. And then writing draft one and of course revising and editing so you have a published product, which brings us to here. The published product is you got to complete a cover illustration, a table of contents, complete an illustration for each report, and then I'll discuss in class this thing called filler pages. Okay. This part of the overview we will complete in class. Basically, it's going to check if you have your basics down. And then we also did this in class where you looked at the required reports and you were able to choose one of the 4 important Americans, and then you brainstorm some of the choice topics you already wanted to do based on a presentation I gave you. Writing goals you will also do as we approach the writing phase. You're going to look at this and think of your strengths and weaknesses, and then you're going to be writing down on this line one thing you really want to work on, and then you and I work together to work on that skill. Finally, if at the end of this you have questions, write your biggest questions here, your big 3 questions, so that we can address those as a whole class. So I can answer some questions in class. But you also might have questions all along the margins as we're going through this. Part 6, which is on page 6, is basically a checklist for the report. So it tells you got to have a cover page, got to have a title page, and a table of contents. Got to have the Jamestown report, and that's illustration first, then the draft, then the 3 branches comes next. Important American, you'll see it's always illustration first, then the actual writing. Then you got your 3 choice reports, and it's illustration first, followed by the draft of writing. Here's the calendar, and already we've embarked on research for Jamestown, and that will take us all the way through Wednesday, researching for Jamestown, and then we finish up writing Jamestown by Tuesday next week, or actually by Monday next week. And then we jump into doing the 3 branches, and we're doing this one. Jamestown we do all together. 3 branches, I break you up into groups. So I'm slowly taking myself out of the process. Then you get to an important American, and this is where I lump you together with people that are doing the same important American as you. So you're working alongside somebody, but you're also kind of working alone. So you're slowly but surely becoming independent. Then we get to the 22nd to the 10th. And the 22nd to the 10th looks different if you are a person that's in language arts than this. If you're in language arts, you are just doing 1 report at a time, getting that report done, then moving on to the next one. If you are not in language arts or you are in modern language, we do research 1 week, or basically for several days in a row, and you do research on every single report. You'll notice the homework lengths are all about 25 minutes, except when the weekend rolls around, they're sometimes a little longer. And then you're organizing the report next. And after organizing the report, you are writing the report, and then you're revising. And all the while, you're going to have pockets of time where you can be working on illustrations or working on other features, so that over this long weekend, you go to Bidote. So it's not really a long weekend. You have school, but we go to Bidote, and it's due on the 13th. But every single student for, since I've been here teaching this, 12 years now, and these reports have been going on for 55 plus years, has been able to finish these reports in this period of time, and you can do it too. Finally, please give a signature here saying that you have read through this with your parent. Your parent signs it as well. When you come into class, you will rip this off and turn this in, and then put the rest of the overview into your binder. I wanted to take a quick peek at what a Washington, D.C. report looks like. This is a PDF, so it doesn't really show all the color and splendor, but you have a cover page, you have a table of contents, and sometimes students decorate this. And then you have your illustration, and so this is obviously 3 branches, and then it goes right into the report on 3 branches. Now this particular student used double space, so the report takes up a heck of a lot more room than it should. It's, I think, 3 pages long. But that's what a report would look like. And this particular student also decided to put in images from Google Images into her writing just to spice it up. That's something you can do too. But when it's all said and done, each report's about a page and a half long. The longer reports, like let's say a Jamestown, a 3 branches, a Mount Vernon, those, or Williamsburg, those tend to be about 2 pages long. And then you'll see another illustration for the Washington Monument comes up, and then she goes into the writing for the Washington Monument. Lincoln Memorial. Each year the project has changed a little bit, the amount of what's required, etc. Okay, then she put her bibliography at the end. And our bibliography is pretty loose. By 7th grade, you're going to get more instructions on how to do a proper bibliography. But in 6th grade, we're really looking for you just noting that you used a particular source. And there is a formula and format for that. Okay. All right, if you have any questions, please place those questions on this line, these 3 lines here, and I'll address those in class as we move through the first week of doing the DC reports. Otherwise, ask questions as you go. Thank you for listening.